But I have a short memory. Short-term memory loss.
Then you should withdraw and take it again next semester.
I'm not withdrawing. I can't afford to withdraw.
This is the pancreas here. We know that the stomach would sit up here. And again, let me have your stomach model for a second. This is really freaky, I gotta tell you. Okay. And even though these are obviously not compatible models, but it would sit something like that, right? So you have the esophagus here, and the distal end of the stomach would insert here. So we know now that this is the beginning of the small intestine, and the first part is called the duodenum. So the duodenum comes in, curves around here. We saw from the other model that the head of the pancreas kind of sits in this curvature, and it comes down. It kind of winds on itself, and right over here is where you're going to see the beginning of the second part, which is called the jejunum. The jejunum, again, sits right here. You can see this here. This is the jejunum, and we run through the small intestine. The last part is called the ileum, and the ileum, you can see it kind of exiting out here, but if you look at the model here, this is the distalmost aspect of the ileum, which is the last, the final part of the small intestine. As we go in, there's an ileocecal valve, which leads you into the cecum here. The appendix sits here. This now leads you up into the ascending colon. There is, again, doesn't always sit right. Let's do this, I guess. Okay, there's a transverse colon here, a descending colon here, and then here around the flexure you have the sigmoid colon. Okay, we have, what's that?
On the right side.
Okay, we have the pink coloration across here, which really represents the mesenteric lining that protects the area. We see the red, which are mesenteric arteries and the mesenteric veins. Okay, and again, we mentioned the appendix here. We have the haustra, which are these little pouches that allow for expansion once fecal material runs through. This is really okay. Okay, and right over here there's longitudinal muscles, which we'll talk about a little bit more in lecture, which again allows for not just the expansion of the haustra, but the movement of fecal material from the superior portion all the way through to the distal aspect. When you look at this particular model, again, sits kind of up in here, and again you can see where, if you look up in here, we can see part of the jejunum here. This is the distalmost aspect of the ileum, right? We have the ileocecal valve into the cecum, ascending transverse, descending colon around the flexure, and into the sigmoid colon. Okay?